As you may notice today, we're not bringing the show on with a musical selection because we have a very special guest. And we're going to be talking politics, we're going to be talking power, we're going to be talking Memphis, Tennessee, and Shelby County government. My name is Greg Grant, your host for the Grant Brothers Bluff City Report, and my co-host is here today, my brother, Alonzo Grant. Alonzo?
Hello, Greg. How you doing?
Good to see you.
We're casual today.
Yeah.
This is what the next to the last day of Black History Month.
That's right. And I am a man.
I am a man.
And you may notice you brought back our original "I'm a Man" sign
Absolutely.
down front on the podium today, and we're awfully happy to have that term because it represents what we are
How
about.
about my Dr. King shirt?
Got your Dr. King shirt on. We got on our National Civil Rights outfit.
Yeah.
You got your National Civil Rights
There you
outfit
go.
on, and
We're
we're
black
just
and we're proud today.
and we're not afraid.
And we're not afraid. That's right.
Each week on this show, we try to talk about things that are informative, that we can kind of keep our people up on.
Right.
One thing that I found this week in the newspaper, they're back on the kick about selling MLG&W. Did you notice this article?
I've seen that. Yeah.
That came out on Sunday, February the 18th, 2018. In the regular newspaper, something that I do not take, and I encourage all of you, if you take the commercial appeal, to cancel your subscription because these people don't believe in black people.
And you have to be careful when you start seeing stuff like that, because I try to look on the inside and shake stuff up. When you go and say that you're going to sell probably the biggest city-owned entity across the board, then who are you really hurting?
Right.
You know.
You're hurting poor, black.
Well, not only that, from a job perspective, you have a lot of black people that work at MLG&W
And making very good salaries.
good salaries.
Mhm.
And if you sell it off, then those people are gone. And they're not going to be hired, rehired, and all that by the private people. So you have to look at what's really going on rather than them telling you, well, if we sell it off, your rates will do this,
Yeah.
your rates will do that. You know, so, but you have to look at the big picture. And I just say it's bigger than what you read.
Absolutely. It's just like when they consolidated schools.
Right,
But 3,500 people lost their jobs.
right.
3,500.
35.
And I'm still upset about school consolidation because it really doesn't work for us. And more importantly, when you think about it, and it goes to the heart of what you're saying in terms of making a case, if a guy has a high school diploma, been working for the school board for 35 years, and he's making $49,000,
Right.
and he gets fired,
Where
is he going to go?
Where
With
is he
a
gonna
12th
go?
grade education and make $49,000 or $50,000.
And that's how you make a city become poor and poor. I mean, when you look what the city of Memphis did, I want to say 5, 6, 7 years ago, under the tenure of the lousy mayor we had, A.C. Ward.
Who was it, A.C. Ward?
Yeah,
The
that
worst
lousy
mayor
fellow.
this city ever had.
And they laid off and fired all the city workers. And where do these people go to get jobs to match what they had? In the private sector, you're going to end up at McDonald's or somewhere else. You don't have insurance, you don't have a pension plan, you don't have anything. And they just downgrade us every time they do stuff like this.
Mhm.
You know, so I said MLG&W is fine. And I said it should stay in place, just like you said earlier, what we said about the Memphis City School. Memphis City Schools was fine. We used to have one of the largest school districts
systems
in
in
the
the country.
nation. And what we got now?
One of the smallest ones. And it's totally embarrassing, and there's no explanation for what they did. And I'm still upset about
And the
it.
guy that's running the school system, I believe they went and got him from Brushy Mountain
As a
Prison.
matter of fact, Dorsey
You know.
Hobson, we're putting him on notice right
Yeah.
now. As soon as we get the right people in as board members, your days are numbered.
I think they went up to where they had James Earl Ray and got him, he was the warden up there at Brushy Mountain Prison, and brought him back here to run the Shelby County School System.
Well, today we have a guy who can address some of those issues, who's going to be our very special guest. He's also a guy who has tenure with MLG&W, and he'll be able to even explain some of those things. But we're not going to bring him right at this moment. We got about 5 more minutes that we're going to do some talking about some subjects. And the killing part for me was the newspaper, Ted Evanoff, said that the city of Memphis could probably sell MLG&W for $3 or $4 billion. A one-time cash infusion. $3 or $4 billion.
One time.
And that should last us forever. But what you have to recognize is MLG&W is a $1.5 billion industry reoccurring year after year. Minus expenses when they buy the power from TVA and pay salaries and all the things they do, they still have a profit margin of well over $500,000.
And the question is, what do
Where's
they
the money
do
go?
with the profit margin?
Where's the money go?
If MLG&W supposedly held private, not private, but held by the public, us as taxpayers, and I don't remember going to my mailbox at any point in time getting a rebate check.
No,
or a shareholders check from MLG&W.
I haven't.
Where we made a profit and said, here's your share.
Yeah.
I don't remember any point in time doing that.
Yeah.
So is something wrong with this picture?
It's extremely wrong.
They got a new chief that starts, I think, the 1st of March over at MLG&W, a black guy from Florida or something. Mm-hmm. And they're touting him as the best in sliced bread.
Well, we'll see.
But now is the time when they want to control it.
Absolutely.
Now, when they had Jerry Collins over there, and a lot of people don't even remember where he came from.
Yeah.
And he wasn't smart as the soles under my shoe.
He came from Public Works.
Came from the sanitation department.
Somewhere.
Okay.
Somewhere.
Never had a nickel's worth of
utility experience
at MLG&W. Then they want to bamboozle us and say, well, we got to do a national search in order to find somebody 1,000 miles away. Although he may be black, but it's nobody in the city of Memphis that's capable of running MLG&W. But Jerry Collins can come from the sanitation department and he ran for the last 15 years.
Isn't it coincidental that the sale of MLG&W never came up during his tenure?
That's right.
Never. Now, while Joseph Lee, and some of these other folks were the head of MLG&W, then they wanted to sell it.
Same kind of talk.
A white man takes the reins, and we hear nothing about selling it. Now a black man is about to take it. Oh, it's up for sale. My daughter Morgan is in the audience today. Morgan, did you get a check from MLG&W? No?
I don't know if I
Well,
did or not.
for her, you got to put something in to get something out.
Yeah, but she's okay because she pays every month.
Okay.
She didn't get a rebate check.
Okay.
So where are the profits?
Where are the profits?
Well, we're going to get around to that, and that's one thing that's very stickler. It's a stickler subject for me, MLG&W. We do have some of the best rates in the nation. Even some people may dispute that, but when you go to big cities, you have several different utility bills, don't you?
Right. You have to pay at least 3 different places. You pay water one place, gas one place, and power at another place. Right across the state line in Mississippi. That's how they do it. Mm-hmm. You got to pay water over here, gas over there, and on and on and on. I think we get a pretty good deal at MLG&W. And you have to be mindful too, all you people that's on the borderline and can't pay the utility bill and have problems. We always have had a situation where the city council could come in and we could have a moratorium and blah, 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 blah. But if a private held company buys MLG&W, all that's out the window.
Right.
You're going to pay to play. If you can't pay, you won't have any power.
You're gonna get cut off.
You won't have any winter moratoriums and
Like
this
we've
and
got
that,
now.
like we have now.
No.
You won't be able to get the extended payment plan and all of this and that. So you got to be thinking about who is it really gonna hurt the most.
So that's why we have to get our politics in gear, because people who are selected to run, or a person that's selected to run that MLG&W utility company is appointed by the mayor of Memphis.
Right.
And it's regulated, they have regulations by the city council. So when you get the right person in charge, then the right person can appoint the right
Right.
person.
And see, now's the time when we need to put this stuff out, talk about it, let our people find out what's going on, because we're always, at every turn, operating behind the 8 ball. We always operate after the fact, after they made the rules and changed everything, and then we come to the table and say, you can't do that, you can't do, well, where were you when they were making the rules?
Well,
You know,
and that's a big deal. So now it's time for us to energize. And our guest is going to be talking about turning up and turning out the vote. You can't vote on the internet in the state of Tennessee. You have to show up to the polls.
that's right.
You know, one other thing, a couple other things has happened this week. You know, you had some shootings on the interstate.
Right.
I don't know if you noticed that on TV.
Yeah, I saw that.
So people need to be mindful to watch out and try to cut back on the road rage, getting excited while you drive your car and cursing at every stoplight, mad at folks who are going slow in front of you and all of that. You got to be careful out there. I told you about the experience that I had right in Whitehaven, where a guy threw a water bottle out the window at me because he was mad at me on the road rage. So we better cut back on that, because people will pull out a gun and shoot at you.
And see, what we have to do also, a lot of that stuff is not so much that you pull out in front of a guy. These people have all sorts of other things that they're raging about, you know, and you just happen to be in the line of fire.
Well,
So we got to try to correct our lives in this city. We shouldn't be living the way that we live in the city of Memphis. Memphis is the 19th largest city in the United States.
19.
19.
Of all the cities in the country,
19.
we're number
And-
19
and
in size.
We're probably the most blackest city in America.
Wow.
Since the demise of Detroit and then New Orleans,
Mhm.
I mean, those 3 cities were right there. Memphis is the top black city in America. You can't go to any other city in this great nation and see what you see in Memphis. And then you have to take a step back and rear back and say, well, why is there so much poverty in a city like Memphis? Because of
Well, at the same time, the city council voted to spend $175 million to upgrade the Cook Convention Center.
right. And at the
Maybe-
same time, you got the compete clause, no compete clause with the FedEx form. And then you come on television, the convention guy comes on television and said, well, we're spending $176 million on the convention center so we can bring the Church of God in Christ back. Well, that's the
That's
biggest
not true.
hoax ever.
That's
The
not
Church
true.
of God in Christ left Memphis because they had to pay, they didn't want to pay the FedEx form $1 million to have their convention in there.
Mhm.
Because they couldn't have it in the convention center and the auditorium anymore because the city signed away the rights with FedEx. So you have to go through FedEx in order for anything to go on. So the Church of God in Christ, St. Louis said, well, we'll let you have the convention center for free.
Well,
Come on.
good for the Church of God in Christ.
And
Good
that's
for them.
how that went down. But they'll tell us, well, it wasn't enough hotels and blah 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 blah. Well, when you go to St. Louis, the same Marriott people own the Marriott in Memphis, own it in St. Louis.
Well,
What's the difference?
so they're just swapping the money out. So we want to keep our eyes on the economic climate in this city. We want to keep our eyes on the political climate of this city. And as we talked about for the bottom half of the show, for the next 15 minutes, we're going to talk Memphis and Shelby County politics with one of the most knowledgeable men in this region on politics. And when he talks to you, he's talking from a position of strength and talking from a position of knowledge.
So
That person,
would the region be inclusive of Tennessee? Or-
Mississippi, Arkansas, Missouri.
Okay.
So there's no other person in this region smarter than our guest
Okay.
that will be coming up
All right.
next.
Okay.
He's a grandmaster in politics. There are only 4 grandmasters in this region. He's one of the 4 grandmasters, and we're just so happy to have him. He is the chairman emeritus of the Leadership Council of the Whitehaven Empowerment Zone. That is a very, very important aspect of Shelby County School policy and what's going forward, and he'll talk a little bit about that. And he's a candidate for the Democratic Party nomination for the upcoming position of Circuit Court Clerk. That individual comes to us today in the persons of the greatest of all times, Mr. Dell Gill. Dale, how you
Grant,
doing,
I'm
man?
good. Grant.
Good to see you.
Hey, how you doing,
You can
Dale?
go ahead and give him a hand.
Good to see you. Good to see you
My
on this
pleasure to be
side.
here. My pleasure to be
Absolutely.
here.
Pull up a seat. We got one right there in the middle. One of your biggest fans. We have an audience of 1 over in the peanut gallery. And Morgan Simone Grant is holding it down today. And Dale, thank you for being here today.
It's my pleasure to be here, Brother Grant.
Well, we talked about a variety of things, and all of these things we talked about, you already know about. You were a vice president at MLG&W?
Well, I didn't quite make it to vice president. I spent 12 years there,
Uh-huh.
and I completed their executive development program to become either a manager or a vice president. That didn't happen, and there's a good story there, but it didn't happen.
Tell us about your education.
Well, of course, I'm from Memphis. I went to the Booker T. Washington High School of Excellence back in about 1967.
You added all that. It
Of
was just
course.
BTW back in the old days, right?
Yes.
Okay, go
And
ahead.
I made it to...
Man, that's something you added. But we got to put a disclaimer on that. Is he added some stuff? But go ahead.
And I managed to get a job, and I made it to the Memphis State University. I earned an undergraduate degree in business. I earned a master's degree in business administration. I was at Firestone Tire Plant. I was fortunate to be at the Firestone Tire Plant in undergraduate school, and they sent me to their MTM school, which is a Methods Times and Method of Time Measurement School, and I became an industrial engineer by the industry standards. I was once grandfathered in as an engineer in the state of Tennessee. So I left Firestone and was the number 6 African American engineer at MLGW. I stayed there a while and I moved on, and I spent some time downtown as a manager, an administrator for the General Sessions Court Clerk's
I
Office.
remember.
I was the civil administrator directly, and then later I served as the operations administrator for the overall operations of the court session of the court downtown that deals with misdemeanor crimes, as opposed to crimes punishable by greater than 1129, which goes upstairs to the 4th floor
Got
of the
it.
criminal court. So I'm quite a bit familiar with civil court procedures.
Tell us about your experience in the local Shelby County Democratic Party in terms of its origination. Maybe not its current state, but when you organized, a lot of people don't know that you're the founding member of the party by charter.
Well, let me say this. It was in 1978. It was restructured from a recognized state political party in 1978, and it was then placed under the authority of the Tennessee Democratic Party at Nashville. Prior to that time, it had its own independent charter from the state of Tennessee. That was 1978. I joined the party about 1982 or so, and it had always been led by non-African Americans. And about 82, 83, I said it didn't make sense that we've got as many African Americans in Shelby County as we have. And looked at the rules, put together a process, and lo and behold, we were able to, in 1985, October of 85, come up with a process for electing the first African American chairman ever in the state of Tennessee's history. That was the former state senator Roscoe Dixon. He was just a state representative at that time. But that happened, and I've continuously served executive committee of the local Shelby County Democratic Party up until August of last year, when the state decided they wanted to dissolve the local Shelby County Democratic Party. And
Which was a major mistake,
it's been another story.
and, but that's a whole nother discussion for a whole nother show. You know, some years ago, we elected our first, since you're talking first, our first black mayor, who was W.W. Harrington. But even to get to that, you had to have a process.
Correct.
That you have to develop, and one of the leading people in making sure that we had African American representation. Give us the name of that process, and how did you fit?
That was the 1991 People's Convention. The original call for having a convention that would end the frustrations that African Americans were experiencing from 1979, 1983, 1987. I think it was Otis Higgs in 79, 83. I'm trying to remember who. It was either Minerva or Gill Patterson. Then in 87, it was either Minerva or Gill Patterson. I've forgotten exactly which one, but it was Otis Higgs, Gill Patterson, and then Minerva Johnigan in those 4-year sessions. And each time, because the city of Memphis had a runoff provision, the population of Memphis was at least 40-something% African American, and African American would never win. I'd never win any position at all because of the runoff provision. And finally we got a court decision from the federal courts about 1990 or so that said that they were no longer going to allow the runoff provision. And what we thought we needed was a process for coming up with at least one candidate. And that process was, Teddy Willis had called for having a people's summit, which would have just been a big, huge conglomeration of people who probably would have been influenced by whoever brought the most people over on a busload to the convention process, to the summit.
Right.
And myself and a former gentleman who was a teacher of mine in school, Mr. William Lachey, we suggested, why not use the convention process that the Democratic Party, of which 94% of African Americans in Memphis and Shelby County, they tend to be Democrats. We said, let's use that process. And what we did, we put a twist in it. We said, instead of basing it on precinct by who's a Democrat, we're basing it on precinct by who on their own voluntarily decided they would call themselves black. And that's what we did. The convention was open to anybody, but there were delegates awarded on a proportional basis by precinct, based upon who's black. And as a result, Willie Harrington came out of that convention process with about 76% of the vote. I think Chuck Whitman had something like 16%, and Talib Muhammad, Dr. Talib Muhammad, he had an even smaller percentage. But it brought this community together. And for 17 years, we had the services of Dr. W.W. Harrington.
Now, Dell, for the sake of time, you have to tell us what you're doing currently. You know, we have an election cycle coming up, and we'd like for you to tell us you're involved in this.
Well, Brother Grant, I can say that on May 1st of this year, the Democratic Party, of which I still remain a member of, will be having a primary. And it's a mutually exclusive primary. There are not but 2 recognized political parties in the state of Tennessee, and they are entitled by state law to have a primary, which means that on that date, if you choose to be in the Democratic primary, you can't be in any other primary. So I'm asking as many people as possible to come out on May 1st and choose to be in the Democratic primary. There are some county level positions that are going to be up for a primary. I'm seeking a position for which I have experience as an administrator in the civil court. I'm seeking a position as the Shelby County Circuit Court Clerk. Essentially, that position is I'm seeking the nomination of my Democratic Party. I have an opponent, but I'm asking voters for that support.
Okay. Well, that sounds great. I'm sure this is not your first time that you've ran for a position.
No, in fact, in 2002, I sought this very same position, and we had a massive turnout there.
And I think if my memory serves me correctly, you won the nomination.
I won the Democratic nomination. I got 72,000 votes. Unfortunately, the Republican nominee got in the 80s. He got 80-some thousand votes, and it was a slightly different time. Now the turnout is the difference. It was about a 45% turnout in 2002. The kinds of turnouts we've been having recently, like in September 2000, in August of 2016, the turnout was only about 15%. Only about 50%, or about 83,000 voters turned out, as opposed to me having received in 2002, 72,000 alone.
So,
Well-
so we need to get our numbers up and have a great
We
turnout.
need to turn up the turnout. We need to turn up the turnout.
Okay.
That's what I was about to talk to you about, the corn that you've phrased, the phrase you've coined, turn up and turn out.
Exactly.
It's simple, it sounds good, it's got a hook on it.
Right.
It's short and people can remember it,
Turn up the turnout.
and that's what it's gonna take in order to win. So taking that philosophy and looking at the numbers and the percentages that we have right now, historically, as you know, normally we lose all the countywide races. Historically. The only somebody who's been able to penetrate that was maybe Minerva Johnny Ken, Cheyenne Johnson, Ed Stanton, your former
I
boss.
served under him for 2 years, yes.
But for the most part, we normally lose. What's different now?
Well, what I'm suggesting is, this county has a majority African-American population. And about 90
Population or registered voters?
Well, even in the registered voters also correlate almost in the same.
But that's what you gotta be mostly concerned with, is registered voter space, or getting people registered.
I mean, they don't mind letting you have the population
It's-
because the population do exist. But it's the registered voter that's holding the key to your election.
And to the election for mayor, and to the election for sheriff, and to the election
Absolutely.
for assessor, for trustee,
Absolutely. All
circuit
of them.
court clerk.
So if we take your corn phrase and we're gonna turn it up, and when we say turn it up, that's getting the word out, that's electrifying the voting population.
It means also, the first thing, people who are in the Democratic primary need to start putting on their literature and on their signs, Democrat, and let Democrats know that they
But
are
maybe
a
some
Democrat.
folks are afraid and some people are ashamed of being a Democrat. Maybe some people think, well, if I don't say Democrat, maybe I can get some crossover
This
votes.
would be a good opportunity for the party chair, the new party chair, to suggest to his primary board that people who don't use the Democratic Party label on their literature and their efforts in the primary should probably have their petition withdrawn by the party itself.
Then, of course, that is some internal things that they're gonna have to deal with, but in terms of the race that you're running, you're gonna put Democrat on your literature?
I'm a Democrat. I'll have Democrat on mine.
You're not ashamed?
I'm not ashamed of being a
So
Democrat.
in other words,
I've been one all of my
are
life.
you a yellow dog Democrat?
I'm a dog of a Democrat.
You're a dog of a yellow dog. So in other words, if it's a dead dog on the ballot,
It's-
and the dead dog said
I'm a
he's a
Democrat.
Democrat,
I'm a Democrat.
that's who you voted for.
That's who I'm voting for.
Well, you heard it first right here on the Grant Brothers Bluff City Report, where we're getting first-hand information by one of the smartest guys in this region, Mr. Dell Gill. We have no reason to believe that this man is not qualified. He is qualified, overly qualified. And we're gonna ask you, the listening public, to give Dale a shot. We believe in him. The Greater Memphis Democratic Club believes in him. He's one of the ones that we're going to be endorsing in this upcoming election cycle. And I tell you, on the last ballot that we submitted, it was 99% successful. We only had one person on that ballot to lose. And we're going to try to improve it this year, where we'll have 100% success ratio for all the folks that we endorse here at the Greater Memphis Democratic Club. Want to thank you for watching today. We've enjoyed spending these 15 minutes with the next circuit court clerk, Mr. Dale Gill. And when it's time to go to the polls, he's the name that you need to be looking for. Wouldn't you agree, Lonzo?
I agree 100%.
So if it's any Sunday and anywhere in Memphis, it is.
The Grant Brothers Bluff City Report.
Thank you for watching.
And have a good night.
Thank you.